Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Hey Matt, how's it going?
Okay, I can't hear you very well. Yeah, that's worse. Now you're muted.
What about now?
That's a little bit better. So I kind of like the volume of your mic needs to be turned up, if that's possible.
Zoom meeting. Can you hear me any better now?
I can.
Hi Kendall, how are you?
All right, Christian, how are you?
Good, good, thank you. We'll wait for see where we're at 7:05 before we get started. Matt, are you good to take notes today?
I am.
Awesome. Great.
Kendall, are you a committee member or board member or just a private attendee?
Committee member as of a meeting or two ago.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should introduce.
No
Matt
problem.
Kendall joined, yeah, about a meeting or two ago. He's on the committee now. He's a public member, and Kendall, Matt has been on the committee since we formed in September, and he's been kind enough to volunteer as a note taker. So he helps us keep track of all the things that we commit to doing.
Good.
Good evening.
Hi, Charlita, how are you?
I'm good. I may go off camera for a few minutes just to finish my dinner.
That's okay. I kind of want to do the same. So you go ahead and do your thing. Wait another 2 minutes or so for folks to join. And I think also Kendall and Matt, you both live in Prospect Lefferts Gardens. So you're neighbors.
Yeah, Charlita and I are blockmates, actually.
Oh, cool.
And
So
she, a few months back, organized a Flatbush, a Sunday morning Flatbush trash pickup.
nice.
So we have a we have a trash expert in the committee now.
What block are you on, Matt?
Rutland Rutland near Flatbush.
Okay.
You?
Maple between Bedford and Rogers.
Okay.
Hi, Teresa, welcome. Can you hear us, Teresa? Might be on mute.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Could you hear me before?
No.
Martina can't log on. She's calling. She's called me and can't log on. She's downloaded the app and it's not working for her. I don't know how to, but I know a lot of people have been having trouble.
Who do we have on? Thanks for the flag. Who do we have on from the district office?
Chris, it's tough to hear you again.
Who do we have on from the district office?
Hey, good evening, Chris. It's Khalid.
Hi, Khalid. How's it going?
It goes well. How can I help you?
Would you be able to reach out to Martina and maybe resend her the link to this meeting?
Yes, I can do that.
She's really struggling. She said she's downloaded it and tried and I know a lot of people struggle with this.
That is no fun.
Okay, well, it is 7:06 and we do have a critical mass. So I'd like to commence the meeting officially at 7:06. Martina should be able to join shortly. And if I apologize if you see me looking from off camera for periods of time, it's because I'm looking at another screen at the agenda and letter and other documents needed for the meeting. So first things first, in terms of announcements, which is the first agenda point. Teresa, thanks so much for submitting the request to hold a spring environmental fair on May 14th at Mark and Jason's playground. There have been some new developments on that coming from the community board as a whole, which we'll get to later on in terms of a community board wide fair. So I'd love for us to discuss that as a committee. The other thing I'd like to note for committee members is that you may remember in early January, I put forth a proposal, not from our committee exactly, but from representatives of our committee to get a very small grant from Citizens Committee so we could do some projects, some of our prioritized projects. And happy to say that we're a finalist now for that small grant. So I don't know when we'll, thank you. I don't know when we'll hear back exactly, but I think it'll be in June, to be honest. So I'll certainly keep everybody posted there. Then meeting norms and purpose. So just as a reminder to all of our neighbors that we may not always agree on all the issues, but one of the purposes of our meeting is to try to come together in order to find the areas of common agreement and organize around issues collectively as a team, and then advance those issues in line with the vision we set out in September of this year. So that's a long way of saying, let's disagree respectfully when we do end up disagreeing. Also, some other meeting norms and that we abide by as a reminder, please do raise your hand, and I'm happy to recognize you so that you can speak and share whatever it is that you would like to share out. But we are trying as best as we can, as always, to stick to the agenda. And there is always time for public discussion later on in the meeting as well. So that covers the announcements and also meeting norms and purpose. Moving then to the second agenda point on our meeting, which is just a review of previous action items. In the previous meeting in February, we committed to running our letter to councilpersons back by the DSNY district superintendent one more time, and I spoke to him on the phone. He gave some more additional feedback, which I kind of referenced in the letter. There's already been some discussion online via email on that. We can go more in details into that, but that's just to say that cross that action item off of our list. I reached out to DSNY superintendent. This is the third time I spoke to him. I reached out to him again to make sure that he's on board with what we're proposing. Another item that we had as in terms of action items from the last meeting are that we had committed to trying to find another location in the northeast quadrant of CB9 for a trash receptacle replacement or installment. And I put out that call to the entire CB9 community. Someone did, I think that might be Martina. Martina, is that you? Martina, did you just join?
Okay, I just joined. I tried it a million different ways and it's not working.
No problem at all. We're happy that you could join us. Thank you for being here, and I'm happy that you're feeling better as well. That's the most important thing.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened and why it's not working, but okay. I'm here.
problem. We're just on action, we're on agenda point number 2, which is review of previous action items, and that last item was just simply that we put out a call to try and get a location in the northeast quadrant of CB9 where we could replace a trash receptacle. One member sent back a location. She sent us pictures. It looked great, but unfortunately, it's just on the other side of the street, on Utica Avenue, I believe. So it's actually not in CB9. If it's on the east side of the street, if it was on the west side of the street, it'd work, but it doesn't work. So I said, you're welcome to submit another location, even on just simply the west side of the street, but we haven't heard back. So I think we have the 10 locations. We've consulted wide and far, and we have the 10 locations for the trash receptacles. So that leads us to the third agenda point. But before we get to third agenda point, any questions on the previous action items?
Chris, I have one. The number 10. What's the reasoning behind that number versus 5 or 25 or whatever?
That's a great question. So last year, CB9 had extra funding because of the not opening up office space, and even not hiring a district manager. And so CB9 funded a bunch of trash cans, new trash cans in our district. I would say it was about 20 to 30. Being that this proposal is asking CB9, and that's something I want to clarify from the emails this afternoon, this aspect of the proposal is asking CB9 to replace an additional set of trash cans. We didn't want to go, we're mindful of the fact that CB9 replaced 20 to 30 last year. So this is kind of this is a portion of the remainder trash receptacles in the high traffic areas that could be replaced. And so the way we came down to 10 was we actually started with 20. Martina did a great job surveying the district. Her and I came up with 20 locations, but we want to really prioritize this for CB9 and be mindful of the limited resources that we have. So we dropped it down to 10, with 5 being above Empire Boulevard and 5 below Empire Boulevard to try.
That's helpful. But Chris, the letter asked for the council members to fund it, not CB9, right?
Yeah, I need to clarify that, and maybe this is a good segue into the letter for council persons. So I put everything in one document so that it'd be easy to read, but in actuality, it's really 2 separate things that we're asking for here. One of them is a letter to council persons of what we would ask our council persons to do. Go into that in a minute. The other thing is 10 locations for trash receptacles to either be replaced or just simply installed. That we're asking CB9 to purchase. So I apologize, I don't think I made that clear because I bundled everything in one document, but one request is for CB9, the other request is of our council members. Charlie, that's your hand raised.
Yeah, on our call last time, the last call that we had, I don't know who the representative was. It may have actually been the chair of the community board. I'm not familiar with all of the players. But I thought that person said pretty clearly that there would be no money in the budget like there was last time. Like whatever excess they had to use to purchase those trash cans, I could have misheard, so I don't know. But I thought he said there would certainly not be the budget to do that again this year.
Glad you raised that. He did say that. That was Fred. That was the chair. I spoke to him afterwards to confirm, and he asked me to speak to Dante. I spoke then to Dante, had a phone call with Dante, and Dante said, just submit the request. We should be able to, I don't want to commit CB9 to doing something, but Dante manages the money, and Dante encouraged us to submit the request.
Well, again, I thought council members funded street baskets as part of their district allocation. So I'm confused about the CB9 funding it as opposed to asking the council member. And And then back to my question about 10, let's, why not ask for 20 and then settle for 10? But
Or ask for 10 from them, if your original number was 20, ask for 10 from the council members, and then you get 10 from CB9, and then we end up with 20.
well, we're asking it from 2 council members who cover CB9, right? So 10 from each council member, but whatever. That's the budget dance every year around this stuff. So
I think there's many ways that we can skin the cat. I would ask to please just use the raise your hand function on the bottom, because it's easy when there's just a small group of us, but if we start to really
Oh,
engage,
I see it. I didn't see it before. I see it now. Thank you.
or just if you're on video, feel free to raise your hand. Look, I mean, I think there's different ways to skin the cat, but at this point, we are going to propose, the committee is proposing that CB9 funds 10 baskets, because CB9 funded about 20 to 30 last year, and then we have a different proposal for the council members. And so when we talked about red lines, and this is something we've now discussed for 2 months. So when we talked about red lines, what we're really saying is that if you are opposed to the specific recommendations in the letter as a whole, then it's something that you can, share, and we can remove a whole recommendation. But in terms of 10 or 20 or 5, for the sake of time and the sake of the deliberations we've done over the last couple of months, that's not something that I would really like to entertain right now in terms of red line budgets, in terms of red line edits. Charlita?
Hi, just a question. One thing, and I think you addressed this already a little bit, by indicating that the original intent was that the trash can garbage bin request would be a request that you were making to CB9 and not to the council members. I understand that now based on what you're saying, and putting to one side a moment whether or not you would reconsider asking the council members who actually have the power and authority to deliver on that ask to us, putting that to one side. I did not understand what the ask was to the council members, like what you were actually asking them to do or take action on from the letter that was sent around.
Thanks for raising that. So in terms of the content of the letter, one thing I'd like to say for everybody is we don't need to get wrapped up on the sentence structure or the spelling. Fred, the chair of CB9, told me that the most important thing is to lay out the specific recommendations. They are going to change. If we, as a committee tonight, decide to elevate this letter and vote to pass this letter, it's likely that the letter is going to change the shape or form, but the recommendations will be the same. So Charlita, to your point, what I'm hearing is that those recommendations weren't clearly spelled out. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, I understood what the letter was about. I did not understand if I was a council member, what am I supposed to do with this? I understand this committee has, these are the things that this committee is talking about, but what does the committee want me to do? I didn't understand that. I also don't know how to lower my hand, so do I just hit this again? Oh, okay.
Sure. So that's a good opportunity, because I think the letter, if we vote on it and it gets out of committee tonight, the letter may change, but the recommendations and what we're asking council members won't change. So what the letter is asking is a couple of things. One, to pilot a program that would be on-site containerized storage of trash. Sorry, not on-site, on-street. So, and to do that in commercial corridors like Flatbush, Empire Boulevard, and Nostrand Avenue. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's calling for implementation of Law 199, which also, Law 199 is a law that would implement commercial waste zones. That's something that the DSNY superintendent, although he's not in charge of picking up the trash for businesses, he said that this is something that would be practical in terms of our proposal. And it's something that was passed right before COVID in December 2019. And Commissioner Catherine Garcia was pretty active behind supporting commercial waste zones. So that's asking for commercial waste zones, which would have the effect of reducing truck traffic, because right now, each business on Flatbush or Nostrand or Empire Boulevard, they contract out their trash pickup to different third-party service providers or different trash companies. But if you had it broken down by a commercial waste zone, then one trash pickup company would pick up all the trash for that commercial area. So it reduces the number of trucks in our commercial corridors, and it would allow for a pickup from containerized trash that's placed on the street, as we have in the picture in the letter. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is just enforcement of existing alternate street side parking rules, which is 1 day a week in some blocks or 2 days a week in other blocks. So enforcing those existing rules as opposed to 2 or 4 days of alternate street side parking. So what we would do as a committee this evening is vote on the letter. The letter would change, but those 3 specific recommendations would not. That's what I would propose we entertain this evening. I'm open. I would love to hear more, though, from committee members on that. Now that I've explained what the 3 key elements are, I'm happy to take questions on those elements or other concerns.
I do have questions, but I'm going to reserve and I'll let other people who may also have questions speak.
Kendall?
Well, you know, I'm a bit of a ringer on these issues for a couple of reasons. One, on the commercial waste zones, I've been intensely involved in that issue for the last 5 or 6 years since it was initially proposed. I led the Association of the Locally Owned Waste and Recycling Companies during the debate with the council over its adoption, and although I don't have a formal role with the industry, I continue to informally advise a number of the companies and others about its implementation, including the business community, about what the implications are for it. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's very problematic for the city. Experience in other cities is that it could result in both a lack of competition and a significant increase in prices. As I noted in some message prior to this meeting, on Friday, the City Hall and DSNY announced a 3-month delay in the deadline for accepting proposals from companies. And that's an indication to me that there's a lot of concern over the scheme as it's currently being designed and what its potential implications could be for the city, not just for the industry, but for the business community as a whole. As I read the letter, it had a half a sentence about commercial waste zones, and I'm not sure why it needs to be in there at all, because quite frankly, it is the law. DSNY is pursuing the implementation plan for it. Whether or not it happens or in what form it happens is beyond the purview of, you know, community boards and our input into it. But there's nothing that we need to say at the moment about whether or not it should go forward or not. And then I guess related to that, as I indicated in a note prior to the meeting, the trash corral concept is one that has not yet been tested elsewhere in the city. DSNY is pursuing maybe a couple of locations at best to see if that concept can work in certain areas. But it's very premature, I think, for us to say that that's something that we want to be involved in testing until there's really been further advancements with DSNY's figuring out how to make that work and where it works and what the issues about it are. So I think it's something we should keep an eye on, but I think it's very premature to say that we're ready to have it piloted in CB9.
Thank you for sharing. Charlita?
Yes, but before I go, is there anyone else who would like to speak? I really don't want to.
Well, if I could, just a clarification on the commercial waste zone thing. The way it is designed to work is that there would be there would be 3 companies awarded franchises for each of those zones. So that's not just one company. There would be 3 companies to choose from in each particular zone. Is the concept behind local law 199.
Sorry, Charlita, I'll get right back to you. I want to give Martina a chance to speak.
Yes.
Martina, you're on mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Kendall, are you referring to just simply that the city there is no precedent for New York City? Because there's obviously a great deal of precedent all around the world. You know, in Europe, in Japan, you know, all over the place, South America, there have these things have been implemented. And as far as I can tell, they are successful, but you're saying that New York City might be a different story. Is that what?
Oh, I'm well aware of the types of systems that are used elsewhere. I noted in a prior message, I have a client that is bringing a European system to the U.S. And we're in active discussions with DSNY and NYCHA and others about use of it. It's a company called Underground Refuse, if you want to look them up. But yeah, New York City has no experience with that kind of thing. And New York City, you know, is right to begin exploring that, but it's very early stage to know what kind of approach is going to be workable here in different areas of the city. And so for us to sort of jump in with anything other than an expression of interest, I think is very, very premature.
Charlita?
I had, I guess, a threshold question that I think would maybe help inform my views on the recommendations, which is the purpose of the letter. It says, you know, I made some edit, but I understand there were 4 issues, and one issue, I just said sanitation services. But I guess maybe getting some more context on what we hope to accomplish with the letter, because my understanding of it, or at least my hope for the letter, right, is that, I mean, we are at like the levels of trash is really just abominable. And we talk about it in the letter. We talk about it being a public health concern. So to me, if we are going to these people, I would like to see them doing something that can have at least a more immediate alleviation of the issues that we are facing, because it truly is a public health situation at this point. And putting aside, you know, how successful or unsuccessful or anything about the corrals, my understanding based from the last call is the best case scenario is that is the kind of thing that would be a 2023 third quarter event. And we, in my view, if we're going to these people to say we have major public health concerns, then we should be offering them or giving them an ask that provides them the opportunity to actually address and alleviate our public health concern, because that is what I want them to do. I totally agree, though, long term, we always have to be progressive and future forward. And I think that they should be keeping their eyes on it, right? Because it does sound like something that is the wave of the future and progressive, and we shouldn't wait to get in line for that or understand more about it way down the road. But that's, so I just kind of wanted to understand more about, we talk about it being a major public health issue, but we don't necessarily seem, at least from just these three things, that anything that is going to, I think, meaningfully address or alleviate the actual problem that we have. So that's why I think I'm leaning really hard on the trash cans, because we know, I mean, Eugene Mattel, like, we know that they can just do this. So I think maybe if I understood a little bit more about what our goals were and what our purposes were, that would, that would help.
I want to echo that, Chris. I want to give you the chance, Chris, to.
Matt, I want to get to you, but I see Martina raised her hand. Can I go to her first and then go to you? Martina, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to respond to what Charlita said. I think she's got a very good point. We're thinking forward progressively, but we've got an emergency on our hands. This is sort of a critical condition, and it is a health crisis. I totally agree, and an environmental problem that's serious. And so I'm wondering, thinking it over now, maybe we're asking for something in the future. Maybe we need to also ask for something that's going to deal with some of this right now. And I'm not sure what that is, because asking for 10 trash cans is not going to alleviate any problem. It might begin to alleviate, but it won't actually rectify anything. We need so much more than that. That's not even a Band-Aid on the problem. So what does anyone suggest on what else we could ask? Because we could ask them for 200 trash receptacles. I don't know, but certainly I think that's a very good point of Charlita's, that we need to ask for something that's more immediate, if we can. Thank you.
Get that comment. Matt, is there okay, please, Matt, Teresa, and then I'd like to share some thoughts as well. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I actually had a question for you, Chris, more than a comment. You've spoken briefly in the past about, I guess the community board's political power and authority to do something here. And I'm wondering, when you're, just like Charlita said, we want to know what your goals are. When you're asking just for red lines, are you doing that because we've been working on this for a few months and you want to move it forward, or because there's something behind the scenes that we don't see, and there's something limiting what we can reasonably ask for right now, and that we should know about, that would help us craft this in a way that's going to make it more worth our time?
Sure. Now, let me respond to that quickly before go to Teresa. Thank you for raising that. There's nothing that I know of going on behind the scenes that would help us craft a better ask. When I said red lines, what I mean is, from my time at the United Nations, when we said red lines, that means that the United States government, we would veto the resolution. We would not allow this resolution to pass because there's something that is a significant threat to our national security. That's something super high level. Now we're talking about red lines here at a CB9 level, meaning there is something in this letter that is just completely opposed to our vision for what we are trying to do in our community. So that's what I mean by, and we would vote absolutely no against this proposal. That's what I mean by red lines. So the reason I said red lines only, it's because we have debated and consulted over this letter for, this is now the third meeting. And there's a lot of work that does have to be done. Not, I wouldn't say behind the scenes, Matt, but I would say offline. You know, when our committee starts to go in one direction, then I go and I do talk to Dante, say, okay, this is where we're going. Is this something that would be feasible? And that's information that I shared earlier about the 10 garbage cans. That does seem to be something feasible. But red lines at this point, because we've debated it and consulted with stakeholders on this, both at the general board meeting and at the executive body meeting. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Teresa, and then I'll respond to some of the other questions.
I'm happy for that definition of red lines for me because I was thinking something completely different. Completely different. So that's good to hear. I just want to say I'm good with the letter. The only thing that I would add or contribute that I think is important is the trash receptacles for apartment buildings. You know, that's where a lot of rats, garbage, trash issues are happening in front of apartment buildings. You know, that's where I see it all over. So I would just hope for receptacles for apartment buildings to somehow be legislated as opposed to just throwing it out in the bags. I'd love that. Thank you. I'm done.
Support as well. So this letter actually came out from an idea that Martina shared in terms of getting at the trash in front of commercial buildings. And our committee talked about how can we help supers and how can we help developers clean up their trash in a way that is more efficient and it beautifies our blocks. After a lot of discussion on the committee and even surveying our neighborhoods, this is actually the direction that came out of that. So that is something that we've discussed. But over the course of the last couple of meetings, this letter came out and then the letter evolved and has, I think, gotten a lot better over time with more consultations from stakeholders. So a couple of things. I hear what I've heard from our committee is that there's really a desire to affect change now and to have results now. That this pilot is something that would be years away, and that we should be having something more specific that we're asking of council members. I would just say that the committee as it existed last year was a committee that was essentially a placeholder, and it was a committee that was very reactive. So folks would come in and they'd say, things aren't happening on my block, and I'd put in 311 and then people would talk about it, we would complain about it, and then we didn't take collective action on it. That's been what the committee was last year. This is the first iteration of a new board on the committee. And I think the way I've thought about this letter is that it's a starting point. It's the beginning of a conversation. And coming from where this committee was last year, it's actually quite a bit of progress in terms of organizing around our grand vision. When we organize around the grand vision that we decide on in October, and one of the committee members that's been here since September, please feel free to send Kendall and Charlita the vision that we put together. I think this pilot would be a step in that direction. Now, I also hear the concerns and the interest, really, for doing something right now, which I think is great because other committees are still kind of going around in circles and in not taking action, concrete action, and delivering results right now. And, you know, I think that 10 receptacles, absolutely, that doesn't solve the problem. But part of us getting towards a solution is taking baby steps and having some sort of quick wins, if you will. And that's also part of the reason why I would like to ask CB9 to fund these trash cans. Because CB9, and this is something from a conversation I had with Dante in the fall of 2021, when he came to my block and we surveyed the block and we looked at some of the trash receptacles. CB9 in about 60 days, 60 to no more 90 days, can replace trash receptacles. We can change these trash receptacles out in 2 to 3 months. If we were to put that to a council member, that then gets tied up in other discussions, other levels of bureaucracy that frankly are just not needed if CB9 has the money to do it. So I hear what we're saying, that, you know, changing out 10 trash receptacles is not it's not going to make CB9 a paradise in terms of environmental protection concerns. But I think it's a start. It's something that we could see in 60 to 90 days. And then this pilot is something that, yeah, it might take a year or two, but it's starting a conversation for council members to start to realize that, you know what, CB9 and specifically the Environmental Protection Committee is thinking about these issues and can be a partner for us over the course of our terms. So I'd like to stop there. I see Kendall had his hand raised. I'll go to Kendall.
I mean, all that's helpful background. You know, I'm sorry I wasn't around in the last fall when this was being sort of, you know, workshopped with the like, and I have a lot of respect for the work that's gone into getting it to this point. I guess to Charlita's point, the two bigger picture things here, the forward-looking ones, are, in my estimation, probably 2 years away from any implementation, in whatever form that takes. And the city could test a corral system elsewhere and decide, you know, that's not going to work, and it's going to take even longer than that. So the commercial waste zone thing I've already talked about, but they're minimum 2 years away from any implementation. So there's no direct benefit to the district. From the council's committee hearing on Friday morning, the Sanitation and Solid Waste Committee with DSNY, the focus was entirely on street cleanliness, on amping up service for street cleaning, for enforcement of the 18-inch rule, for storefront businesses and the like, for more frequent collection of baskets and all those sorts of things. That's what the council members are going to be negotiating for this time around in their budget negotiations with the city, is a lot of emphasis on cleaning sidewalks, cleaning the streets, and having the DSNY have the resources to do that, which is in part a headcount issue for DSNY, but in part they respond to pressure from council members and community boards about, you know, that priority issue. And I guess my sense and judging from this conversation is that should be the primary focus of this letter, is supporting the council members in that request by saying this is an urgent situation, and that should be the focus for their negotiations with the city over sanitation services this year.
Sorry, Kendall, can you just clarify? You think that supporting the council members' request to do what specifically?
Well, for more street baskets, you're saying that you want to move them quicker through the community board. I'm not, you know, I can't vouch for exactly how that works, but I think they come from both directions maybe. But the second is for, you know, more frequent street cleaning on avenues, for more enforcement of the 18-inch rule, for businesses to, you know, clean the sidewalks to the curb. Those kinds of things are where there can be a more immediate you know, return in terms of street cleanliness that is of primary concern to folks in the area.
That's helpful. Martina, I see your hand is raised. Is that from before, or do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's now. Kendall, I have a question for you. I'm rather ignorant about, is there an actual law or rule about businesses cleaning the fronts of their
Yes,
businesses? There
yes.
is. Okay, so
It's
that
called the
seems to-
18-inch rule. You have to clean to the curb and then 18 inches into the street.
Oh, okay, so it's just not being done and it's not being overseen.
Well, enforcement sort of, ebbs and flows, but, the enforcement sort of responds to pressure about where there are, troubled areas and the like. And,
Mhm.
they come around and remind businesses of what their responsibility is, and they're subject to fines if they don't.
Mhm. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kendall, and then I'll go to Charlita and then Teresa. Kendall, you said 18 inches from in front of their business to the first 18 inches off of the curb.
Yes. They're responsible for the sidewalk in front of their business and then from the curb 18 inches into the street.
Charlita?
Why don't Teresa, I don't think she's spoken. I'll go after Teresa. Teresa, please go ahead.
Oh, I just want to mention that one of our committee goals was building equity within our neighborhood, and that a lot of pilot programs tend to not be in they tend to be in white neighborhoods, not black neighborhoods. So it's surprising to me that you said, they'll do it elsewhere. Like, they'll do it elsewhere. So that concerns me, and I wanted to mention that. And I also want to mention the 18-inch rule. I'm not sure, but I take your knowledge for that, but that it's also for homeowners. And somebody on my block recently got a ticket for there wasn't really much in front of their house, but they got a ticket for 18 inches like debris in front of their home that was in the street. 18 inches. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Charlita, and then I'd like to, Martina, is your hand raised as well? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
does this,
No, sorry,
this
sorry.
18
Sorry, Martina. I
go
think Charlita had her hand raised.
Oh, sure,
After
sure.
Charlita, we'll go to you, and then I have a proposal for us.
I guess just a couple things, and I don't want to be overly repetitive, but I want to make sure that at least what my position is, that there's that everybody's clear on what my position is. I am totally fine with a letter that mentions this pilot program and these things that are going on, and having, putting it on the radar to start the conversation, as you've indicated. And I think it's an excellent point that Teresa made, that oftentimes when these things happen, they go to neighborhoods that don't have Black and brown people in them. But the reality is, part of the reason that they do that is because these council members have been pressed by their communities to keep their communities clean. If we are sending a letter to our council members and we're not even asking for trash cans, but yet we're going to come in and ask for a pilot program, we're not even asking for low-hanging fruit that we can get. So I just think that that's an excellent point. But we have to create the record of demanding that they clean our streets. We all agree it's abominable. So as I think Martina said, maybe there's other things, and I can appreciate that we may be at the 11th hour. And I'm not a person who wants, what is it? What's the phrase? Perfect to be the enemy of the good, or, whatever it is, so I'm in agreement with all of that. But if there isn't, and maybe this is a question, if there isn't a deadline that's like, if this letter is not in by March 12th, we blow our shot at getting anything, then I would want to understand why we would not want to make it so that there is full consensus in what we are asking for. Because I just strongly believe that we cannot send a letter that says this is a DEFCON 4 level, but then we ask for absolutely nothing that is going to address and take any kind of steps to address where we are right now. And especially when they have a budget and that budget will go to somebody. Somebody's going to ask for trash. Somebody's going to ask them for money right now. And those people are going to be the people who get it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is it my turn? Can you hear me? I can't hear you though.
We can hear you.
All right. Okay. Okay, now I can hear you. So I just have another 18-inch rule question, which is, does it apply to apartment buildings as well as businesses?
I
That's
think
something you
that,
can answer.
I think it applies. I didn't know about commercial, but I know for sure residential, that 18-inch rule exists. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do we need to then ask for the implementation of this rule?
Okay, that's a great point. So I think this conversation leads naturally to this. Here's what I would like us to propose. The letter maintains the same requests that are in there already. So a piloting of a project in commercial corridors to put on-street containers, the implementation of the law 199, and the enforcement of existing alternate street side parking. Those three things, plus we add in one, it has to be tangible, request to our council members of what else we would like to see as a sort of immediate next step, because we're acknowledging that the pilot takes some time. And we're acknowledging that there are opportunities that we don't want to forgo to try and get some resources or better enforcement now. So as based off this conversation, I've heard a couple of things that I'd like to offer this committee and see if we can find agreement around just one of these things. The 18-inch rule, asking council members to enforce the 18-inch rule for businesses and residences. And I'm going to add the caveat that CB9 has talked a lot about the 18-inch rule. That's a delicate issue. There are a lot of different understandings of the 18-inch rule, and that will lead to a lot of discussion in the general board meeting next in 2 weeks from now, if we decide to go with the 18-inch rule. But that's one option. Second option is asking council members to replace more baskets across the district, and we could share with them what that basket could look like. I would recommend, for the sake of consistency, the same type of basket that we're asking CB9 to install. And third thing would be more consistent street cleaning on avenues and enforcement of street cleaning on avenues. Those are the three tangible things that I've heard in this last 30 minutes or so that we could also ask council members. Does this committee feel strongly about any of those three things in terms of adding those to the letter to add something more immediate? Please raise your hand if you have a comment.
I have a comment, I have a question. When you say implement 199, what does that mean? Like, what are we asking them to do? Like, what is the thing that they have the power to do to implement it?
We're asking them to establish these commercial waste zones that would allow up 3 different companies to put out a bid to collect the trash from commercial businesses in that district, as opposed to right now, which is, and that 199 is not being enforced. Right now, on Flatbush, you can have 12 different businesses between Parkside and Hawthorne And each one of those businesses theoretically could have, sorry, let me just finish. Each one of those businesses theoretically could have a different company picking up the trash. So this is something,
So
199.
is 199, it was passed and it's just not being enforced? Or
It was,
like,
as I was saying, it was passed in December 2019,
yes?
right before COVID-19. To my knowledge, it has not been enforced. Kendall, is
So
there
when you say implement, and I'm not, I mean, when you say implement, are we saying we want them to enforce this 199 that is already existing? Or we want them to do that plus something on top of 199? It just, I don't know what implement 199 means. I just don't know what that means.
enforcing 199, so establishing these commercial waste zones? That the law has been passed, but the actual work behind the law hasn't been done. And I suspect it's because it was passed and then 2-3 months later, the entire city was upside down because of COVID.
Okay, I understand that. I think that could be maybe, and I'm happy to wordsmith that a little bit, but what you just said, now I understand, that better. As to the other options, I don't know why we have to limit ourselves to one of them. I don't know why we can't say we want trash cans and we want enforcement of the 18-inch rule, unless you're saying the 18-inch rule is a third rail for CB9 and they're never gonna recommend any kind of letter that has that in there. If that's the inside baseball, then that perhaps is a reason not to include it. But if it's not that, these are our council people. We are in a situation that is just, to me, it's unprecedented in the time that I've lived in this community, which is a pretty long time. I don't know what they're doing in Park Slope, but I just can't imagine that they're saying like, we're gonna ask for less than we feel we're entitled to. I feel that we're entitled to have trash cans. We're entitled to have our streets cleaned. We're entitled to have the 18-inch rule enforced. I mean, we put these people in office. They work for us. Why are we
I agree with that 100%.
limiting ourselves on what we ask them?
Yeah,
Sorry, let me just comment, and then I want to go to Kendall and then Matt. But I agree that, listen, what they got over there in Park Slope and in wealthier neighborhoods in Brooklyn, we should absolutely have that here in our neighborhoods. Point blank, period. But this is I'm trying to frame this in terms of the beginning of a conversation, and I think that if we are specific in our asks and judicious in our asks, we have a better opportunity of starting the conversation. And then this committee is going to be meeting in September again next year. And we can add more things to that. And these council members are going to be there for another 3 years. But I would not, from my experience working in public policy, I would not have a laundry list of these are our 10 requests, because then we might they won't even get down to reading the 10th request. They'd stop reading at the 8th request.
Well, it's okay if they stop reading at the 10th request if it's the pilot program, which is 2 years away anyway. I mean, why is that in our top 5 when we know it's something that is best case scenario, we're not going to see, and these guys might not even get reelected. It's beyond their terms.
Kendall, is there something you'd like to add?
Well, I'm in favor of things that offer immediate improvement in street cleanliness services. And to reinforce the council members, negotiating stance for whatever that includes, whether it's baskets, it's more frequent street cleaning in high trafficked areas, particularly along the avenues and the like. To be clear, the commercial waste zone thing, as I tried to explain earlier, is in the process of being implemented. It's been delayed because of COVID. It's been delayed because of it's an extraordinarily complex scheme that has yet to be fully sort of worked out. DSNY is still issuing draft regulations about the implementation. They've issued 2 rounds of an RFP on it, one to pre-qualify companies and one to get fuller proposals. And what I said earlier is that the deadline for those responses has just been shifted to the middle of the summer. So that process is moving along. There's no enforcement to be done there. It's an implementation process that was always designed to take several years. So I don't think there's any need or benefit for mentioning that in the context of this immediate budget request, and I would oppose any mention of it and in favor of focusing on immediate improvement in street cleanliness services.
That's great insight. Thank you. So right now that leaves 2 items, the 18-inch rule and alternate side. One of those gives direct results. Penalize people for not picking up trash. The other, I wonder, I mean, as a resident of the neighborhood, I want the streets to be able to be cleaned reliably. But that is, alternate side is a less direct route to keeping the streets clean than simply requiring people to clean up their parcel of land. So if we have to stick to one of these 2, I would favor the 18-inch rule. Problems within the board notwithstanding, I can understand a lot of opposition to that, especially residential enforcement. That's all.
Chris, I don't have a clue what the board's opposition to that or third rail issues might be around that. Can you enlighten us?
It's not so much opposition, there's just a lot of confusion and misunderstanding and lack of understanding around the 18-inch rule. And I'm not opposed to 18-inch rule. I just want to make sure that we understand that that will lead to a lot of questions. And if I'm proposing this to the board, then it would be most helpful to have, frankly, additional background on it, because folks will ask me about, how is it enforced? Who is it for? Why are you including in the letter? Which I can explain why we'd include it in the letter, but I would anticipate a lot of questions around that.
I'm glad to get that for you from sanitation.
Teresa?
Could we just make a more general statement of like enforcement of rules regarding trash and sanitation rather than go into the 18-inch rule? Or, I could see alternate side. Alternate side makes a really big difference actually in my neighborhood. Yeah, that's it. Oh, I know one thing. Does it mention anything in the letter about equity? And I would like it to say something about the pilot programs, like for the future. Like, I would like them to advocate for us, our council people, to have pilot programs in this neighborhood. Very general statement, but fact of the matter is we don't get them. We don't get them in this area. Why?
And the letter does, in the very first paragraph, maybe it's the first sentence, talks about how we look forward to, about equity, equity in New York City. And I think it's such an excellent point. And again, I don't want to, and look, we're all on the same team here. I think that we all want the same things, and I recognize that. And I also recognize that, I'm Johnny come lately here. And so, although it doesn't really seem like it, perhaps I am tempering, my enthusiasm on this issue. But I think that, to Teresa's point, we have been in this neighborhood, it's historically neglected. The pandemic has intensified, as it says, as you already say in the letter, exacerbated what was already like phenomenally inequitable situation. So to me, I personally have no qualms about giving a list of 10 or 15 things because that is what we are owed. Okay, I'm not asking for something that you don't owe me. So I don't care about 5 or 10 or 20 because we're behind. We have not gotten what we've deserved. We have not gotten the resources that we deserve. And quite frankly, we probably could fill 10 pages, and that's obviously not what we're going to do. But I would again just encourage, and I don't know what the administrative process here is for who determines or if there's a vote or whatever it is. I would just encourage everyone who does have a say in that to not be afraid to, you know, speak truth to power and ask for what we deserve.
Folks, we've spent almost an hour on this. We have more agenda points to get to. And we have consulted on this for several months now. So I would like to propose we entertain a resolution that would put forth the following recommendations. To Kendall's point, expressing support for full implementation of 199 because it's in the process. So this would just be, this is not asking for enforcement. This would be just saying supporting the implementation, supporting that process. That's one thing. The second thing would be enforcement of existing alternate street side parking rules, which means traffic enforcement. Folks are having to move their car so that the broom is able to come and sweep and pick up the trash. And the third thing is the piloting of a program that would put on-street containers in commercial corridors for trash disposal. The fourth thing then would be the 18-inch rule, enforcement of the 18-inch rule. And is there a fifth thing, Charlita, that you would like to add to that?
Well, in my thing, I said trash cans, and I hope all of this is just, we're just ticking off things and not necessarily the order in which we would present them in the letter. But I would ask for trash cans for sure. Or it doesn't necessarily, or maybe it's trash cans for the different types of trash cans for the apartment buildings, or just, you know, something that I feel we can actually, that they can actually deliver on. Because I think some of this other stuff is just, it's a little fuzzier on their ability to deliver, but I agree wholeheartedly, and holding their feet to the fire in terms of the ask and holding them accountable for it, but giving them something that they can say, they asked for this, we gave them this. And so I would be in favor of having something in the letter that falls in that category, and I think trash cans is one of them.
When you say trash cans, what do you mean by trash cans, just to clarify?
Trash receptacles, the one that you have in the letter is fine. I mean, if there's a different one that people want to advocate for, that's also fine. But like this, the trash can that is on the corner here of Rutland Road and Flatbush, and that is on the corner then of Maple, those are terrible. They create more trash than they protect. And if I could get something on those two corners or along the Flatbush, it would be all the better. I mean, as people have said, it's not gonna stop the problem, of course, but it's gonna do something.
Okay, so installment of additional trash cans.
Yes.
I'm sorry, right now we're just gonna entertain this recommendation again for expressing support for full implementation of 199.
I'm opposed to that.
We're gonna get there. Enforcement of the 18-inch rule for residences and businesses. Installment of additional trash cans. Enforcement of existing regulations, alternate street side parking regulations, and trash, containerized trash on I'd like to entertain a motion to send a letter. The content of the letter may change, but the recommendations would be the 5 that I just mentioned, to send that letter to council members Hudson, Joseph, and Mealy. Are you seconding that?
No, I just wanted to ask, of those 5 things, is one of those 5 things to be forward seeing and to actually request for the pilot program in a year or 2 or however long? Because I think, you know, years go by quickly. And so if we can have that, you know, implemented in a couple years, that would be, you know, a game changer for all of us, potentially.
Yes, that's one of the 5, Martina, piloting a containerized trash collection program on the street.
Okay, and I wanted to just say one thing to Charlita very quickly, which is that this idea that a quick deliver with requesting that apartment buildings have receptacles, from what I gather, that would need to be legislated, because right now there is no law for them to have proper receptacles. They can just throw the trash bags out in front and, you know, anything goes. And that might take time in and of itself through legislation, but I'm all for it.
Oh, yeah, and I said that in response to Chris said, what kind of trash receptacles? And I said, I'm fine with the ones that are already in the letter. I would also be fine if there was some other apartment style receptacle that we wanted to ask for instead. But it sounds like that may be a thing that doesn't exist. So again, I'm fine with the thing that's already in the letter, the trash can that has already been, you know, vetted.
Yeah. And hopefully, as Chris said, this is hopefully the beginning of a conversation, an ongoing conversation, and maybe we will get to that place where we're discussing legislation.
So I'm entertaining a motion to send such a letter with those 5 recommendations. Do I have someone that would like to second that motion?
Can you explain like what that means? Like what's the next, if we agree, because I do agree frankly on the letter, like I don't know what else you think is wrapped up in the agreement beyond the fact that these 5 things will be mentioned. So I just kind of want to understand what that means.
Sure. So by asking for a motion, it's just asking if there was someone else that would also like to consider this for a vote. And then after that, I'm happy to talk about the 10 locations we've already identified to ask CB9 to replace. Does that answer your question?
I think we can proceed, yeah.
Christian, I believe Martina seconded your motion.
Okay, Martinez seconded. So then I would like to put it to a vote. All those in favor of sending a letter to our council persons asking for these 5 specific things, and I'm happy to repeat them again if helpful.
I have a procedural question, Chris, sorry, but doesn't this letter go first to the full board for consideration before it goes outside the board?
Yes, sorry, this is a recommendation to send this to the general board for consideration. If it gets out of CB9, then it would go to the council persons. So I'm asking for folks' vote. Do we support sending such a letter with these 5 requests to CB9? I see Matt are you in favor?
I'm in favor with the caveat that I think Kendall's point about 1199
199.
is worth considering. It sounds like given its administrative status, it might not make sense to include it. So if you're requesting red lines, I think that's a legitimate request for a red line.
Okay, I'm asking us to vote to get this letter to the, we're not changing, I'm not taking out support for full implementation of 199.
I thought that, sorry, Matthew,
Sorry, let me just,
is he against that though? Maybe I'm just, I thought he said I thought it was something else that he was against, the not implementation of 199.
No, what I heard Kendall say was that 199 is in the act of being implemented at the city level. And it's not something that we're in a position to request. It's not as though it's not being forced in our district. It's that it doesn't exist yet.
Got it.
That was my interpretation of what Kendall said.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Matthew.
I would like to get to Kendall, especially on this voting question. But right now, I'm just asking for everyone's vote. And part of that vote means that one of our 5 recommendations is expressing support for full implementation of 199. So Matt, I'm sorry, I need to clarify. Are you in favor of the letter?
I'm in favor of that.
So you vote in favor of
I vote in favor of the letter, yes.
Okay. Teresa?
Yes, I vote yes. I'm in favor.
Alita?
I guess I'm in favor of the letter. I am in favor of the letter, but I would echo what Matthew said about, just, acknowledging the point that Kendall made, and maybe there's a way to split the baby in that.
Martina?
I agree. I mean, I'm for the letter.
Okay. Kendall? Would love to hear your vote and also
If it includes the commercial waste zone 199 reference, I'll have to either abstain or vote no.
Okay. It does include a reference to expressing support for the full implementation of 199.
And I will vote no on that.
Okay, so you vote no on sending this letter to the general board.
Because it includes that reference, yes.
Thank you. So that's 4 votes in favor. That's 1 vote against. That's enough to get this to the general board for consideration. So in terms of next steps,
Wouldn't it be?
so I'll be right there. In terms of next steps, I'm going to make some edits to the letter based off to make sure that these 5 recommendations are included. I'll send that to the district managers. I'll copy the committee so you see what it looks like.
Can we see it before you send it?
Sorry, and I'm going to highlight the 5 recommendations outside of the letter as well, because the content of the letter is going to change. The recommendations are what's important. So I'm happy to send those recommendations as well. I'll send that tonight and ask for, can take a look. If there's something that you think needs to be tweaked, then we could do that. But by Friday, I have to send it to district managers because they need the notes from this meeting and they also need to prepare for the next meeting on Tuesday. Teresa, I see your hand is raised.
I just want to make the point that for the vote, you're not counting yourself. Can you not vote? Because then it would be.
I vote in favor. I can vote. I vote in favor.
Okay, so that would be 5 to 1, right? 4 to 1, 5 to 1. You said 4, right?
That's correct. It's 5-1.
Just to clarify.
Thank you.
We can't hear you.
Can't you hear? I'm sorry.
Whom can you not hear?
Christian.
Christian.
Are you,
Can you hear me?
okay, you're kind of breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You disappeared for a second. You just like. You
So in
back.
terms of next steps, Matt, please record the vote for the notes. That'll be important. And the votes of all 5 members. You don't have to put names, but just you can say 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Done.
And then in terms of action steps, I'll pull out these recommendations and tweak the letter. Please don't focus on the letter. The most important thing is the recommendations. I'll send that to the
I
committee.
guess, Chris, we can talk offline. I just don't understand why we're being censored. Like, why can I not focus on, this is a letter, it's coming from the committee. I don't understand. I don't understand why I would not be, why you wouldn't want, why, it's like I can't see the letter or make a comment on it. I don't understand that.
I'm going to send the letter to the committee.
Thank
But
you.
as I mentioned in the beginning of this meeting, as Fred told me, with this letter, Fred said that the content of the letter may evolve slightly because the letter, if it gets out of CB9, it's not going to be an Environmental Protection Committee letter. It's going to be a CB9 letter.
That makes sense.
So Fred said the most important thing is to pull out the specific recommendations, but I'm happy to send the letter as well, and I will send the letter.
Thank you. And I promise I'll get comments to you immediately.
Okay. Next order of business, and I just want to say, Kendall, I hear your concerns, and I wish that we all could have been fully aligned in this, but I do recognize your concerns, and I would love to hear from you more offline about that. I think you bring a lot of expertise, and you've already helped make the letter a better letter. But sometimes I think part of my job in this volunteer position is to try and not allow us to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think this takes us in one step in the right direction, but I do hear your concerns, and I'm happy to hear offline more about those concerns. And I
do that. Appreciate that. All I would say is that I don't think it adds anything to the letter at this stage of the game. And since it means including it that I can't support it, I would prefer that it not be there, but so it is.
All right, that concludes this agenda point. We now have another agenda point to consider, which is the Spring Environmental Fair update. Dante said he was going to join for that. I'm not sure if he still is, but I'd love to hear from Teresa on that. And Khalid, would you feel comfortable speaking to it a little bit as well?
Here and there, yes, but of course I would definitely refer to Dante's discretion. But yes, I can answer some questions here or there.
Okay. Thank you. Teresa, please, the floor is yours.
Well, we've been working on an environmental protection fair since the early days, and I filled out the budget request, which wasn't an easy task. It's difficult to sorry about that. It's a difficult format to use, but I did it, and we picked a date. I think it was May 14th, correct? Saturday. And there were some questions about Mark and Jason's playground. That's where we wanted to hold it. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of text about something, but I don't know how to turn it off with this format, this new WebEx thing. So Dante, I filled it out and I was hoping to hear from Dante sooner than just this afternoon about the request that I made. And I filled it out more to just find out if that date was available, because there's actually, we found out there's supposed to be some construction happening in that particular park. And the park is off of Nostrand, between Empire and Sterling Street. And it's a underutilized park. Like most of events seem to happen in like Prospect Park. So we wanted to have it in a underutilized area. But I guess the brunt of it is that the full board is having a fair now. I talked to people about it, and they were going to do it in June, but I guess they switched it to May, like a week after ours, like having a full event. So I guess the discussion is, it's Sunday, I believe, May 20th is the date. It's a Sunday, which could make it more difficult. And I talked to, quite a few groups, like Maple Street Garden, the Rat Academy, had some Grow NYC, just talked about if they were available, and sanitation, just different groups that would come and present. But seems like the budget I put in, I just put in a bunch of stuff because there was, I didn't have any help filling it out, and there's no format, there's no records of previous events at CB9. So it was very difficult for me to do. It was hard for me. I just didn't have any reference or any support to fill out that form. And I was told to ask for anything you want. I did, and apparently I asked for too much. So they're not going to pay for DJ. They're not going to pay for any food. They're not going to pay, I need some more details about what I wanted to do with like a plant giveaway. And all right, I'm willing to do that, but I really just wanted to know if the date was available for that park. And I still don't know. So I was hoping Dante would be here. He said he was coming, but he's not here. So that's where we are. We could throw our towel in with the main fair that's supposedly on the 20th, but I don't know where they are doing it. I wasn't, I don't know if they've applied in order to get a permit. Like I've held events myself in parks and applied, but this would be through the committee, and I had to put down like how many tables, how many chairs, all these things. I asked for everything I think of. I don't know what. I also wasn't given any inventory of like, what does CB9 have? Like how many tables, how many awnings, how many things that I could think of that we could have at a fair. Have a live band, like just different ideas that we passed around in this committee and with people I talked to. So I was excited about having the Rat people come. I really like the Rat Academy, but it seems like we should just go with the other group. Like they were like against, like I asked for posters, and I don't know. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit discouraged about it. I was excited and I'm like, oh well, let's just go with them. So there we go.
Thank you for sharing the latest, Teresa. Open up the floor for questions and comments. Folks.
No questions. I did. Oh, okay.
Is there
Sorry.
something? Is there
Charlita-
something that? Oh,
Charlita
sorry.
and then- Charlita and then Martina.
Is there something that we as the committee or members of the committee can do to assist or to help you? And
Well, I was hoping we'd all like everybody volunteer. We picked the date together, and everybody agreed that it would be a good date for them, which is the 14th. I guess it would just be like informing the community, helping hand out some flyers, posters, and then showing up at the like I was hoping to do a plant giveaway, and I asked for a budget for that, or seeds. Like I wasn't really sure how much budget I could get, so it's hard to plan. It's difficult to plan something when you have no idea about any kind of budget that you can get, or what other people have gotten, or what's there. So, and I was told to go for it, so I did, and I I don't know.
Have you asked, have you, like for the trash cleanup, for example, I went to 626 Flatbush to the management and I'm like, look, we're doing a trash cleanup. We need vests, and they like gave money. You know what I mean? So there might be some room there since it's in the community. I don't know if they might consider it's a little too far away, but there might be other businesses or whatever that might want to give money that could help with some of this stuff. I mean, I'm happy to work with you on that if that could be helpful.
Yeah, that would be good, but I guess we need to know if we can have a location.
Well, yes, that would be first.
And that's why I filled it out, and then it seems like it's so close to this other fair that we might want to just go in with them and still do our part, but it's just hard to envision it when there's no place yet, not knowing where.
A lot for us to consider here. Martina and then Kendall.
Yeah, actually, I think Teresa just answered my question because I was trying to understand what the conflict was, and the conflict is that there would be two fairs in the month of May, but that doesn't seem like such an awful thing. They're not on the same days, but I guess, Teresa, if you think that maybe we would receive more funds for what you're looking for because it's one day as opposed to two, then maybe we should do that. I don't know, but I like the idea of just an environmental fair standing on its own.
Kendall.
Teresa, respect the work, and sorry you found it so frustrating to figure out how to conceive and launch this. I'm wondering if Grow NYC can offer any sort of advice or technical assistance about how to organize an environmental fair. I'm sure they've done 1,000 of them.
Well,
And whether they could really sort of be helpful in thinking through and thinking about lead time. Can you do one in 3 months? You need 6 months, and all those sorts of things. But I think they're in a position to really be helpful to us in thinking through what it might be.
yeah, well, they were on my list, and I did talk to them, and they we need the date and a place. I talked to the Rat Academy. I talked to Maple Street Garden. I had people lined up, but I need confirmation of a date and a place before I can, finalize those things. If it's so general, like, May sometime, that's all I could start off with. I wanted the date beforehand. Then everything can fall into place, right?
Hi, excuse me. Christian, if I may, can I go over the points that Dante had responded to Teresa regarding the budget request?
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. The board is looking to do a community fair on May 22nd, 2022. The tentative date for the EP fair is May 14th. The committee may want to consider joining the board's community fair. If the committee does not want to join the board's fair, we will work on securing Mark and Jason's playground for the EP fair for the May 14th date. We're only saying that because it might be easier to join the community fair and then we'll just widen the scope and the effect that we want to have with the fair. And as mentioned earlier, just the EP committee work on its end to bring in the EP related agencies and any other programs or awareness measures that you guys would like to bring to the fair. But if you want to keep it separate, you can. It's just a matter of placing the permit in with NYC Parks. Next point, the board is unable to make purchases for a DJ. In the budget request, there was a request for a DJ and a live jazz band. That's just almost out of the question. But we can always, of course, further discuss. Next point, a full explanation of the EP fair would be helpful. So when discussion of the part with the plants and the seeds and such, we wanted to know, are members of the public planting during the event? What's going on? Could the materials be donated by the Parks Department or another organization? We need like those type of details. As government agencies, we do not pay for permits. There's no need for us to do so. It's just we'd like to give the other responding agencies some time to facilitate the process. And I don't like to tell anybody that we can expedite the process or anything like that. I just wanted to go by, the protocols of the corresponding agency. Food will not be purchased with board funds. Only water will be provided. Volunteers should be members of the committee or, of course, community residents if they're available, and board staff will help if requested and needed. The board office does not have the capacity to print large quantities of flyers, and it does not have the capacity to physically post them in the district. It's just 3 of us in the office. And so we rely on the committee members to, be physically present if possible to help with flyering. And if the committee would like flyers posted, we need the committee members to help create a plan for doing that. I'm sorry that Dante was not able to join in this evening, but I will definitely bring this up with him tomorrow. And Teresa, I am noting that you had difficulty and you were hoping for further assistance in filling out the budget request or proposal, and I will definitely make sure that they know that you are starting from scratch. An EP fair has never been considered so far as I've been working here. So I will acknowledge that, you're starting from scratch and you don't know what you're working with. So I will be sure to let Dante and Mia know that, you're going to need more hands-on help. Okay.
Yeah, I've asked for it, and they're aware of that. And I asked for like what kind of inventory there was, and there was also a health fair recently, and I asked for assistance with like who ran that, if I could talk to them or see what the budget was for that, how that was handled, and I never got to see any of that. So
Okay. So I will bring that up. Okay.
and it would be nice to have like like guidelines for people to go by, because it feels a little bit like ask for what you want, and then it's like, oh, what are you doing? You can't have this, you can't have that. So
Okay.
please.
Understood. I will relay that.
And do you know the place,
I'm sorry.
perchance?
The
The
place.
location of it's the 22nd, right? Sunday the
Oh, the
22nd.
community fair. Okay. So working locations or ideas in mind would be the East Drive going into Prospect Park from the Lincoln Road entrance. So maybe that walkway segment or the
In Prospect Park.
yes,
East Drive is in Prospect Park. That's
yes.
not even in the community board.
Well,
So
so it's weird with the jurisdiction. So events that happen in Prospect Park that borders along Community District 9, we're still very much aware of those and a part of those. Say, for example, um, businesses, or at least Brooklyn Flea DC LLC, where they would have a smorgasbord. They reach out to the office when it comes to their liquor license application renewal or anything that would happen within Prospect Park. We do interact with Ms. Kirshner and request her input or advice on anything of that nature. So it's weird, but we still have a relationship with Prospect Park. But as was pointed out in the response, if you really want the EP fair to take place at Mark and Jacob Playground and on the 14th, that is your decision as the committee.
but is it available? That's what I was hoping Dante would find out, because there's supposed to be construction, right? So that's one of the reasons that
I see. Okay, all right then. I'm making note of this, and we'll bring this up with him tomorrow as well, to determine if it is available, if is no intended construction during that time frame. Okay.
You don't know? Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows when that construction is starting?
Well, so in the I monitor information that comes into the office email, and there has not been any formal notice for work at Mark and Jacob Playground at that time frame. So it's a matter of us, or at least myself, I can look into to see if there's upcoming work. And I will reiterate to Dante in terms of where his search is, because to be honest, I unfortunately can't say that, okay, well, he's informed me where he is in his search process or anything like that. So I'll have to just iterate to him tomorrow that you're requesting about following up on construction and if those dates are available.
Yeah, there, yeah.
Teresa, if I may, I would like to just ask a clarifying question. And first, I want to acknowledge you put in a lot of work in terms of submitting the form and talking to various community groups that could participate in our fair. And I really appreciate your passion and the way in which you championed an idea. You didn't just talk about an idea, but you took the idea and you ran with it. And I think that whether we do our own fair on May 14th, or we join the fair on the 22nd, or we do a fair at a later date, I don't think that your work is for nothing, and it won't go, doesn't go unnoticed, and it will lead to a nice fair in some capacity. I did have a question for Khalid. Khalid, to Teresa's point, it has often been shared with our committee and with other committees that we should aim for the stars, aim for the moon in terms of requests, budget requests, and even support from the district office. Now, I know it's a limited amount of folks that we have there, we have limited resources, but what's your sense in terms of the amount of assistance, both planning and resources from the community board? What's your sense? Do you think that if we did this fair at a later date, let's say next, like in the fall, or if we had proposed this fair 3 months ago before this CB9 wide fair, do you think that we would be able to have more assistance, both in terms of people support and resources, if we weren't proposing a fair so close to the 22nd?
That might be possible. I honestly couldn't confirm that, to be honest, because this is the first time that we would be attempting to do a joint committee fair, at least in my tenure here. In other instances, it's been the youth services. They had their youth expo event in March or such, and then you would have the health and social services committee. They would have their fair in June or sometime during the summer or maybe in the spring. So the committees would do things a couple of months apart, and it would be a little bit easier for us as staff to help facilitate the committee and members with that. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try. So that's what the point, at least, that Dante was saying, that if you guys really want to have this fair May 14th, we're not going to tell you no, and we're going to assist you as best we can. And regarding the aim for the stars comment, I acknowledge that. I do I do remember, of course, us saying that you guys should think about what you want, and don't limit yourselves. But I understand the response of could have been a lot better, and I will definitely iterate that to my supervisors and work with you, Christian, and Teresa, in seeing what's a little bit more feasible in scope. To be honest, we usually, our events, they happen in 2 to 3 hours time frame, and maybe 5 hours maximum in terms of setting up and setting down. We don't have events past 6-7 p.m. because we're assuming everybody has their own things to do, and we don't host parties of sorts and live bands or DJs. That's never been a case for any of the fairs that we facilitated. And when we say a fair, we want the people to come and take something away. So when we saw the budget proposal, we didn't know what would a constituent be gaining from it by attending this thing. There was very little information in terms of vendors that would be there, and any programs or anything of that we'd want to promote. And so we're only seeing DJ, $200 plants and musicians and food and such, and we're thinking, is this a block party? So that there's confusion there, and like I think we really need to sit down and talk. That's what and I'm gonna point this out to my colleagues tomorrow morning, and further the conversations with Teresa and Chris.
Yeah, Dante should have just somebody should have just called me or contacted me and said, hey, this is, I have no reference. So and it's not true that I didn't put down community groups. I put down a whole slew of groups, including Grow NYC, Rad Academy, Maple Street Garden, Brooklyn Botanic Gardens. I had a whole list. Sanitation, I had conversations. I wrote that all down. So don't say I didn't have any community partners down, because I did. I'm sure that I did. It's I'm kind of laughing because it's like, we can't do this. We can't do that. I don't know.
Understood. Okay.
I just wanted to have some fun. I put down there, just so the committee knows, I put down show an environmental movie after dark to the kids, that's that, have a jazz band. There's actually, we discussed in this committee, there's a police jazz band, I thought a local band, I had a lot of nice things that I was hoping we could do. And I just filled it out with my imagination. And I think we could have saved a lot of time if somebody would have contacted me. It's kind of a bit humiliating to have it this happen, in a committee meeting when somebody could have just contacted me and I could have worked with Kristen or something and,
yes,
put it to something that was more in line with what you wanted. Because when you tell me, we don't know, we've never done it before, but then you say we have done it, and you're giving me these lists of these are the amounts of times that we usually do. This is what the precedent is.
We have not done an environmental protection fair, at least in my tenure here, is what I'm saying.
A lot of other, it doesn't have to be environmental. It could have been any of the other groups to give me some guidance. Any of them would have, anyone.
Folks, I want to be respectful of our committee's time, and I know this is an important matter. I'm trying to think also, how can we put a pin on this? And while lifting up the great work that you've already done, Teresa. So I'm offering this, I'd like to propose this as a suggestion. What if, Teresa, the proposal you put forth, we still asked for these things. We still partnered with Brooklyn Botanical Garden. We investigated bringing that police jazz band, all those community partners you were thinking about. What if we still engage them, but ask them to come on May 22nd for a larger fair? Is that something that would be of interest to this committee and also to the district manager, to Khalid in this case?
I can't. I really honestly couldn't comment on the jazz band or the DJ part. I really can't. The only thing I can really say is that I would like to have Dante and maybe possibly me as well, Christian and Teresa, for us to have a conversation on what's feasible for a budget proposal. Because I like I said, I recognize Teresa's frustration and the lack of feedback, and I want to rectify that, and I do want for us, the office, to narrow down what's better. And even if it's having the fair on the 14th, we'll make sure the scope is appropriate. And if you'd like to transfer it over for the larger community fair, if you can include the jazz band, and that's something that's a lot more feasible since it's a larger scope and including the NYPD, that sounds like that would be a great idea. But we need to have the conversation with the rest of the admin staff.
Well,
all right. Hey, sorry, Teresa. Let me ask this to the committee then. I'd like to solicit opinions from the committee. Does this committee want to continue to pursue an environmental protection fair on May 14th, given the constraints that CB9 shared with us earlier, or would we like to still partner with some of those community organizations, but do it on the 22nd as part of a larger CB9 fair? And Teresa, I'd welcome your thoughts first and then other thoughts from the group. I know this was really your project.
Well, I just want to say for me, the location is really important. You know, I rode around on my bike and took in a lot of ideas for where to present it. And I wanted it to be in an area that doesn't seem to is underserved, you know? So Prospect Park isn't it for me. So that's the one, I guess the word's caveat. Caveat, yes, thank you.
Mhm.
For, you know, I would want to know where it was
So
first.
that
That's
to the side, Teresa, let's say that our fair would be done at Mark and Jason's playground. Let's say we're able to secure a permit for that. Or there'd be a community board wide fair in Prospect Park along the edge of Ocean Avenue over there, Parkway. Would you be interested? What would be your preference?
I want to find out where the community fair is going to be, and I would like to be part of that conversation of where, not be left out. I want to be part of the conversation, and I want to put in my 2 cents for that. You know, I don't know how the rest of we talked about this in this committee about choosing a location that was not in. We had a lot of input on that. That was when Pat was here. You know, people made different suggestions. So that's important to me. I would want to be a part of that.
Hearing that you want to be part of conversations around equity in terms of a location for a potential fair, that's important to you.
Yes. Thank you.
Other thoughts from the committee? Preferences from the committee as opposed, would we like to do our own fair on May 14th? Or would we prefer to join a community board 9 wide fair on May 22nd?
Teresa, what would a successful day look like to you?
Well, I wrote it in the proposal. I guess that, you know, start off in the afternoon, have some good groups show up. Road, we see all those people, have a table with each table. I'm kind of nervous to talk about this anymore, but
I only ask because, you know, I mean, my opinion is I'll support what you want to support. I'm just trying to help figure out.
well, in the playground, in that park, you know, I looked around for locations a lot. Several groups showing up, inviting people from the community, them coming, like them going away with like some seeds or a plant, you know, learning about composting, learning about how to tree pits, and any of those things that any of those groups, learning about Maple Street Garden, the Botanic Garden programs, you know, would have been like a larger group of community partners, you know, there to share in a day, you know, just that's all I wanted. And I was thinking about like the band, of course, and at night, like having a movie for the kids. But that was like a really long day. But I just threw it all in there because I wanted to see how things would work out. So, because I didn't know what they do. It does sound a bit like a block party, but that's kind of, I guess, what I envisioned, but in a smaller park. Like people come to have fun, learn, enjoy, learn about the environmental programs that are in the city, and whoever wants to show up. And since it was such a long day, I put in like give lunch to all the volunteers, but I guess that's not allowed. Just water.
There's a lot of great ideas, Teresa, and I don't think that they're gonna be for naught. I think that we're gonna find a nice resolution to this on the 14th or 22nd or elsewhere. Um, just want to give an opportunity to Kendall, Martina, Charlita. Is there any additional thoughts from any of you?
I don't, and I'm gonna have to hop at 9. I just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Let me see if I can put my video back on here. Thank you for your patience with me in only my second meeting, and I know I probably prolonged the discussion around the letter, but I think we have landed at least conceptually on something that is a consensus product. And I look forward to working with all of you on all of these issues to come. You know, I've been in the neighborhood a long time, and I'm just at a breaking point, frankly. So I'm glad to have comrades in arms here to try to get us some equity in sanitation resources and services.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
passion.
Charlie.
Thank you for your energy. Everyone that's participated in the letter, I think, has made it a better letter, a stronger letter. We're going to have to vote on the replacement of the locations of the trash receptacles as well. So I just want to go to Kendall, and then I'm gonna have some final commentary on this agenda topic. Kendall, thanks for raising your hand. Appreciate it. I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. It just seems to me it's the first time around that to sort of make it more manageable, that, you know, piggybacking on another event would be a good way to start. And then we can see how that works and then decide whether or not a standalone event made more sense in the future. But respect that these are an enormous amount of work, whether it's a block party or an environmental fair, and that the 2 months we have left between now and then is barely enough. So again, if you can sort of piggyback on another thing that's already being planned, that would seem to me to be the better course of action, or reschedule for the fall.
Thank you, Kendall. I appreciate that. In conclusion on this agenda point, I agree with what Kendall just shared. I think it might be helpful to piggyback on an event and devote some of the partnerships we were building with some of these community organizations, devote those partnerships and that energy to an event that still has a space for environmental protection, but is part of a larger CB9 event. But Teresa, this has been your baby, so I know we've talked about this a lot already tonight. I think in terms of a next step, I'd ask if you can talk to Dante, talk more, get on the phone with him as the vice chair of this committee, and you can talk more about what you proposed and see if there's ways we could strengthen that either for the 14th or the 22nd. And then do you think you could report back to us in April with what you think is best as an action step? I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
I think April's a little late, so we would I'd send an email before then
Okay.
to everyone.
Send the email to the committee after you've had a chance to think about it.
Yeah, I don't want to waste a lot of time on it and work that could be done easily outside of the meetings. So thank you.
All
Is
right.
everybody going to piggyback? Is everybody available for that date? Is anybody not available for that date?
I'd make
It's a
myself
Sunday,
available.
the 22nd, right? Is everybody available? Matthew?
I could pencil it in, but I can't, I think it's too far in the future for me to say I'll be available then.
Kendall?
I'm checking. I'm not. I go up to a statewide conference on Sunday for
What
3
about
days.
what about the 14th? Would you have been available then, or too bad Charlita left?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open on the 14th, so
All right, well, thank you.
Have some good data points. We'll table this. Teresa, we look forward to hearing from you via email after you've had a chance to think about it a little bit more and maybe connect with Dante.
Yeah, I would just like
Um,
more information about the other fair before. I mean, you could commit to it, but I don't know if I can commit to that date either. I probably, but it's a Sunday.
Uh, Moving forward then to the next agenda item, which is just public discussion. I see there are no members of the public on this call, so I'm going to, everyone is a formal committee member. So I'm going to move to the next and last point, which is any other business.
There's one thing I want to bring up. Sorry, I want to raise my hand. I would really like the new website was supposed to be introduced in the last board meeting, but I didn't hear anything. I couldn't really attend. I was there briefly, but it doesn't seem like that happened. But I would like a web page for us. I've seen other community board committees, like environmental committees, have this, where they just have a page where they have their mission statement, and then they have what they're working on that page. And I think our new members would have easily been able to see what we're doing, and people that might want to join us from that page. And then also list community partners, like how to get a tree put in, or where to report something to do with sanitation. Like I've seen them out there, and I really like that. So I'm hoping that we could have that eventually.
Website is a critical way for us to get information, and it's important to have an updated website. And there's more we can do there. So thank you for raising that. I know Khalid is on the call, and I'm sure he'll take that back. Last order of business then, if there are no other items, is I would like to entertain a motion to vote on the replacement of 10 trash receptacles or installment of 10 trash receptacles. I sent out the exact locations within our district prior to this meeting. It's at the bottom of the document that has the letter. This is a request. This is a separate request to CB9 to spend. It would be between $8,000 and $9,000 to replace those trash receptacles with modern trash receptacles. Do I have someone that would like to second that motion? Okay, Martina would like to second. So I would like to then put it to a vote to this committee. Would this committee like to vote in favor of replacing 10 of the old wire trash receptacles? And there's 2 of them actually that would be just simply installed, 2 locations where it'd be installed because there's no trash receptacles at all. All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Chris, in a previous meeting, I asked whether instead of replacing the existing ones, we could simply supplement them. If we're getting new trash cans and one of our problems is not enough trash cans, why not keep the ones we have, deficient as though as they may be, and also get newer and better ones?
I think, yeah, you did raise that. That's a great question. I haven't seen that where you have 2 trash receptacles side by side. I think that's a conversation, though. That's something you could raise perhaps with Dante. For the purpose, though, of this motion, I vote in favor of it. Teresa votes in favor, Martina and Kendall as well. I would just like to know, Matt, as it stands, which would not involve 2 trash receptacles, but as it stands, how do you vote on this? recommendation.
And I,
Sorry, I want to hear Matt here.
Well, if someone has feedback on what I'm asking, I'd like to hear it.
Sure, okay.
A question for you, Matthew.
Sorry, Martina,
what's-
and then Teresa.
Okay, so Matthew, are you saying, you may not be saying putting two trash cans side by side. What it sounds like you're saying is that find other important, serious places that need additional trash cans and then add to those areas so that there's more trash cans overall, but not two in a row. Is that what you're saying?
If there are particularly problematic corners that are consistently overburdened with trash, it might make sense to have two there. If there's a reason you can't have two in a place, that's fine. Don't have two in a place. I'm trying not to over prescribe here because I'm not an expert on this. I'm simply saying, why get rid of something that we currently have if it does serve a purpose?
Okay, so does that answer your question, Martina?
Yeah, so I see what you're saying, and there's also the possibility on some of those corners, there may be 2 or 3 trash cans, and then there's one corner that doesn't have a trash can, and maybe, I don't know, we could put in the new trash can there so that it doesn't necessarily have to be 2, or it could be, is it legal to have, I would imagine it is, that it's okay to have 2 in a row. I don't know.
Teresa,
well, after he said that at the one meeting, I was like, nah, that'd be too many. But then I looked around and I noticed in some neighborhoods, there's as many as 3 trash cans. And there's trash cans in some neighborhoods, like in Park Slope, they have 3 in a row. One will be for compost, one will be for trash, and one will be for cans. You know,
Yeah.
and in Chinatown and around the city, there are definitely corners where there's 2, 3 trash cans, and I can see us having more than one trash can. And I thought, wow, that's he had a good idea, and I felt a little bad that I was like, no, when he heard it, and because now I'm like, yeah, let's have 2 trash cans there, because some corners people throw a lot more garbage around.
And I can't emphasize enough, if there is a reason we really do want to get rid of the ones we have, I'm all ears, but it just sounds like, if you have an asset, is there value in keeping it before we just throw it out the window and say, oh, we don't need this anymore? Because I feel like we do.
Well, the contained ones are a little better with the
excuse
rest.
me, I'm sorry, Teresa, I'm sorry to interject. I just want to see, Kendall, is there something you'd like to add? Okay, so it's a good question. It's a question that was raised before. And I need to clarify, I have seen as well multiple trash cans in a row, but one is for recycling, another one is for a different type of trash, another one is for a different type of waste. What I understood Matt to be suggesting is 2 trash receptacles side by side that are both for all types of trash, not distinguishing or delineating between recycling or other types. But again, the motion that we just voted on is a motion for the replacement of trash receptacles, and in 2 locations, as it says in the document, there are no containers, so it would just be brand new containers. Now,
So to clarify, it's putting containers in place where there currently are none.
for 2 out of the 10, it'd be
2
putting
out of the 10, okay.
containers where there are none. For the other 8 out of 10, it's taking as you see in the picture in the document, the old, what I've written as the old school trash container, and replacing it with the type of trash receptacles that CB9 purchased last year.
Okay, I'll vote in favor.
All right, so that's 5 votes in favor, no votes against. That would be helpful to note for the record, Matt. And, you know, look, I think your question is a good one. Honestly, I would love, Matt, if you could chat with Dante or another district manager about the feasibility, because that might be something that we want to pursue in the fall with council members or in the fall with CB9. I think it's a good question, but if there are limitations to putting 2 of the same type of trash receptacles together, and if there are not, maybe that's a priority for next year, identifying additional areas that are high traffic where we can add a container.
Understood. I've got to go take care of a kid, so I'm going to drop off, but I've got the vote and I'll send you the notes soon.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, at this time, actually, the meeting is adjourned. There's no further business. We've covered all agenda topics. I want to thank everybody for your participation. The executive committee meeting is on Tuesday night at 7. I'll share with them our 5 recommendations. I'm going to send that out to all the committee members tomorrow. It would be most helpful, Kendall, if you could provide a little bit of background on the 18-inch rule, so that I'm prepared for some questions from the committee. And Teresa, it'd be helpful if you can talk to Dante and come back with us with your recommendation in terms of environmental protection fair. So I want to thank everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.